All right, welcome back to Podcast Recovery, everyone. We are your hosts, Eric V.
And Allie V.
And before we get into the guest tonight, I just wanted to remind people to check out our Patreon page, which has been around probably for a while now, as well as, think of it as the seventh tradition. And don't forget to leave something in the basket. But besides the self-promotion of trying to, blah, 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 tonight we're joined by Ange. How are you doing today, Ange?
I'm doing great, Eric. How are you doing?
Doing okay. How are you, Allie? Are you good?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm a little hot, but I'm all right.
I understand. I'm in an attic right now, and I'm sweating like...
Oh, God.
I have to turn the AC unit off, so it's like 80-something degrees and humid in here. So, Ange...
Yeah, I can't imagine.
It's awful. Ange, where are you from?
I'm from Springfield, Massachusetts.
Oh, cool.
West Side, yeah.
Cool. And when were you first introduced to recovery?
My first meeting, I was 17, and yeah, my aunt brought me. I actually just put up an episode where I got to chat with my aunt who brought me. She's still sober 13 years, so thank God for her. Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
And what is your sobriety date?
June 18th, 2019.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeet.
And with all that out of the way, we'll turn it over to you to share your story with us. So take it away.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I appreciate anybody carrying the message, but I also love talking and I love podcasts. So this is like super cool and cool to hear other people's stories through your show as well. Yeah, today, I mean, honestly, I got to start in the today, and I'm just trying to ride the roller coaster that is life right now. Like, it is up and down. My anxiety's killing me sometimes, but I'm still sober, and I'm not going to pick up today absolutely no matter what. Just no matter what, I'm not drinking. I don't think anybody's as excited as I am about my sobriety. You know what I'm saying? Like, my family's proud of me. I'm so excited that I have this sustained recovery right now. I've been trying to do this for a real long time. Yeah, it's been a journey, and for me, relapse is definitely a part of my story. But I like to try to flip the script on its head and start with what it's like now. Only because if you're new or struggling and you're hearing this, you already know that I have sobriety or I wouldn't be on the show. Well, you can go ahead and assume that that's the case. And I just want to say that, like, where I'm at now is just so mind-boggling because I never thought I'd be here. Like, I have a sober podcast. Like, what? Like, who? What? I used to just get fucked up and sit in the studio and make hip-hop albums. And, like, now I'm, like, actually doing things to, like, better myself and better society. It's just crazy how recovery can change your mindset and the way that you go about living your life. And yeah, I mean, like, for me, what it's like now is, like, I go to counseling. I stay up with my friends and my sisters, and I actually call people today and check in on them. People, obviously, now that they know I'm sober, they can ask me for more, and they can have higher expectations of me, and those expectations don't scare me. I'm actually excited by that. I stay up on my chores. I do dishes today. I brush my teeth. I floss them sometimes. You know what I'm saying? Like, these are miracles, people. Like, this is not stuff that when I was drinking and using, I mean, I was lucky if I slept, let alone ate. You know, the dishes were not even on the list. And today, today alone, I took the trash out, did dishes, vacuumed, did the cat litter. Like, I could, like, go, and that didn't overwhelm me even a little bit. It was just stuff on a list that I had to make sure that I could do so that I could feel good about myself and feel like I'm in a good spiritual place. So I feel like in this, I've strengthened my relationship with my fiance a lot. She was my high school sweetheart, actually. And broke up for like 7 years and never thought we'd be back together. My drinking was terrible. It was so bad, and I've hurt her so many times, and yet this program can do such incredible things. Like, working a program can change everything, like just everything. My emotional regulation is on point. It's all because of work, though. I don't just like wake up in the morning like, yawn, I'm so happy. It's like I gotta turn stuff over all the time. I go for walks a lot. I pet my cat. I have a cat now. I never even thought. I was like, nah, I'm not a cat person. Yeah, my cat is the shit. And then I have weird other hobbies that have come up for me in recovery that I'm like I collect playing cards, which sounds mad nerdy, and it is. But it's fun for me, and it's something that, like, you know, it's like, I just never thought I would get into stuff like that. I never thought that I would have a podcast. Like, I never thought I would be somebody that does my chores. It's just little things that I feel like I'm excelling, like I'm living my best life today. So to take it back to what it was like and what happened that got me here, you know, I don't want to fall too deeply into the hole that was my childhood, but it was real hard. When I was 4, my best friend died from cancer, and that, you know, that was like a tough start, and it just made me feel like I couldn't trust anybody to like be my friend for the long run. And actually, a weird number of my friends have died. Like, before I turned 16, I had 9 friends die. I feel like that's kind of a rare. Like, I definitely haven't had a lot of people, and it's not from drugs or anything, like from random stuff. So I feel like I've always kind of been close to death, but today I don't want to die. Like, I don't see dying as a solution to my problems today, and that's a miracle too. I want to actually tackle my problems head on and not be like, well, fuck it, I'm just gonna drink till I'm dead then, you know. When I was little, I'm the oldest of three girls, and my parents are both very special people. And by special, I mean absolutely insane. Obviously, I love them. They're my parents. You're not going to not love them, but it's real hard. I have to protect myself from them. My mom has a lot of issues, and some of it might be from dealing with my dad. But basically, when I was like 11, my mom served my dad the divorce papers and a restraining order at the same time. And even though me and my dad were really, really close, like, our relationship was never the same. I don't think we ever really patched things back up. He was like a lawyer and a high school teacher, and after that, the restraining order situation, I mean, he like was breaking into our house and stuff, and he's pretty much been in and out of jail since. And the thing is that even when I was little, everybody was like, "You're so much like your dad. You're so much like your dad." And so now all of a sudden, the person I'm so much like is just this like criminal. Like, he became a raging alcoholic. You know, he struggles with mental illness, and, you know, unfortunately today I have no idea where he is. He could be in jail for all I know right now. I ended up having to get a restraining order against him myself in my early 20s. So alcohol really does change people, and it makes people do it just makes people act so far out of character. And because I've watched him struggle for so many years, he'll get clean for a little bit, but he can't really still have a relationship with his kids the way he wants, or there's something that stays in his way and makes him feel like he's justified in drinking. So I have to be really careful, because I know that since I am, you know, I'm like, oh, I'm so smart, and it's like, yeah, but you don't want to be the smartest one in the detox. You know, you don't want to be like, it's like, cool, you're the smartest one in an AA meeting. Like, good for you. You're like, it doesn't, it doesn't help me stay sober, honestly. Like, so yeah, like, stuff with him was tough. And my mom, once the divorce was happening, my mom kind of fell apart and stopped eating, and stopped taking care of herself, and stopped taking care of her kids. And as the oldest, you know, it's like, I didn't really have a choice. It's like, I just had to step up and do what needed to be done. So I was helping more around the house than, like, even today when I think about what my childhood was like, it's like, I just wasn't a kid. I just had to be a grown up. And my youngest sister, I'm 8 years older than her. So I basically was like her parent, and my other sister was like a little bit of a misfit, but I knew with her, I just needed to just keep an eye on her and try and help her be successful in school. And meanwhile, I was an overachiever. I played 3 sports a year, straight A student. Like by high school, I was doing it was crazy. I was playing 3 sports. I had the lead in a musical, which was nuts. And I was taking 3 AP classes my senior year. And I balled out too. I got a 5 on the history US AP test. I just pushed myself to the extreme. And for me, education was the key. Like I knew no matter what, if I wanted to get out of my living situation with my mom, because it did get real bad. If I wanted to get out of that situation, I had to put education first and just continue. Like I had the bootstraps thing was just in my brain. And it was like, I got to pull myself out of this. We lived in some real trash neighborhoods. My city struggled as a city. It's pretty poor. I actually now teach in the school I went to, which is a nice way to kind of pay things forward, but it's also kind of triggering because I did a lot of my using at school. I would drink or smoke before school every single day just to get through it. And part of it was, again, with the like kind of that ego of like, I'm so smart, I don't need to be normal for this. But really it was a coping thing. Like I was so anxious and my home life was so shit that it was like I just need to escape. It was my source of freedom. It was my coping skill. It was my bestie, for real, my bestie. And as good of a kid as I was, like once I found alcohol, it was all I really wanted to do. But I didn't have the freedom to just do that. I had to sneak out and lie, and I'd take my mom's car when she was asleep and stuff. And I felt justified. I was like, well, I'm doing everything for her around the house. So, and I have straight A's and I always take care of my sisters and I rake the lawn and mow it. And, it was like all these reasons that I felt okay and just constantly drinking and using. But I didn't drink normally from the get. When I was 11, there was like a 4th of July party and I was just taking sips off my mom's beer every time she wasn't looking. And somebody at the table was like, oh, we got a little alcoholic on our hands. And I was like, ha, ha, ha. Yeah. And then from that moment, I was like, I got to be careful. Like, I got to be real careful. But the funny thing about that night is I was sitting inside. My mom's running around trying to get the girls together, get their shoes on and get them out the door. And she's just a chaotic mess. I mean, but I was just sitting at the table, like not giving a shit and not trying to help and not trying to enable her. And it was like the best feeling. I was like, I want to feel like this all the time. Like I want to not care all the time and not take on other people's responsibilities all the time. And I was 11. So to feel like I had so much responsibility on me, I know for a fact that alcohol was my way out of that. And as my drinking progressed, basically I just threw up a lot, honestly. Like I have no tolerance. But it just became about the chase. There's like harder drugs in there, and that just continued to grow. And every single time it would get out of hand, I would like give it up for Lent. I was raised like devout Catholic. Like I was like, I'm just gonna not drink for Lent. Or I would like get a girlfriend or something and be like, oh, she doesn't like how I act when I drink, so I'm gonna not drink. And like my fiance now was the main one who was like, you turn into a different person. You become a monster when you drink. So, I knew I had issues with it. I just didn't understand to the extent. And for me, it just didn't seem like an option to not do it. As bad as it made me feel about myself, I felt worse if I was just sitting at home in the turmoil. My mom liked to just randomly search my room, and anything she would find would be a reason to keep me grounded for months at a time. Or just whatever it was that she like needed to leverage. And for me, it would be like the tiniest nug of weed, and I would have like two months grounding or something. So I get and as an adult now, I look at him like, I get like if it's your kid, you obviously want to protect him, but our relationship was just so unique and so uniquely strained, and we'd been through so much. I just feel like, I don't know. I can't blame anybody, like it's a disease for sure. But I think she wanted me to not be like my dad. So it was like a big thing like that, like just to try and keep me out of the same troubles that he fell into. So I got into a college far away, Went to school in Baltimore, Maryland, place called Goucher College, and I just like blossomed. I struggle a lot with gender identity. It's part of my story, a big part of my story. And there's this in the DSM-5 to talk about gender dysphoria. For females, what ends up happening is like, when you're like 4 that you're struggling with it. And then there's a period of assimilation that you go through during your preteens, during your teenage years, where you're like, fine, I'm just going to try and fit in as much as I can. And like, so I was dressing like a girl. I straightened my hair. I was always wearing makeup. I was wearing tight clothes. And like, I was trying to fit in so bad with what society told me is what women did. And it was just, I constantly felt so far out of my skin because it's just like, that's just not who I was. So when I went away to college, every semester my hair just got shorter and shorter. Like, and my clothes got, like, I started to feel more comfortable in what I was wearing. And my mannerisms changed because I was like, I can finally be myself. I'm far from home. I'm far from my really Catholic upbringing. I'm far from my mom and my cousins, and I can just be me. And that turned out to, like, people liked me, like who I actually was. People liked it. The issue is I was struggling so bad with my drinking, and there was a period of time when I was dealing coke to every Dick, Sally, and Harry, or whoever the 3 people are that you usually use there. And it was just like, I was just a mess. I was not making good choices. But at the same time, always on Dean's List, always playing. I played D3 field hockey. I was a captain. I was in the musicals. I was in an a cappella group. So I was like super involved on campus. And then my sophomore year, they made me an RA. And we were at our first meeting, and the head of public safety looked at me and he was like, "What are you doing here? This is for freshmen." And I was like, "Oh, I'm the RA of this dorm now." And he was like, "What? They made you the RA? You're the eye of the storm." But it was one of those things where like my realities weren't aligning. My resume looked one way, and the way I was acting on the weekends, or just anytime I touched a drop of alcohol, my whole personality would change, and I knew it. Like, I knew it was an issue. So when I was around 21, I started going to meetings again, and I was like, I need to do something. I'm not doing good. I got a couple months sober here and there throughout my sophomore and junior year of college. And then when I turned 21, I remember I went to this giant liquor store they have in one of the Baltimore counties. I think it's in like Lutherville or something. And I went in and I like filled up a cart with like some of the like, just like the weirdest combination of shit. And I drank alone in my dorm room to celebrate my 21st birthday because so many people knew that I was trying to get sober. So I was embarrassed. I didn't want to tell anyone that I was drinking again. And that's kind of a pattern that's persisted since. Like, I'll try and get clean and I'll tell people, because I want to protect my sobriety. So I'll tell them I'm not drinking now. And then I am drinking. So then I'm trying to hide it. And, I'm sure you guys know the drill. Like, it's like a runaround. And it's like, people never know where I'm at. They never know if I'm sober or not. And luckily today they do, but it's just like a pattern through the years. So when I was 22, I don't even know how I hit bottom at this point, but I just had it. I don't know. It was just like, I'd gotten PC'd a couple times, and I kept getting kicked out of places. If anywhere I went when I was drinking, I was getting kicked out. I was just like a rascal, and I was having a lot of interpersonal issues. I was always cheating on somebody. It was just like, I clearly had no confidence, and alcohol was my only solution. But I wake up in the morning and go like, what the hell did I do? Like, so I started going to meetings, and I stayed sober from October 31st, my senior year, 2013, until two years later, November 2015 or something. And it was through my senior year of college. So basically had to redo my whole friend group in the last year. But because of that, I got into Teach for America. It's pretty hard to get into. It's like a prestigious teacher. It's like if the military were teaching, right? And I got placed in Nashville, Tennessee. I also, that year, the end of like my first year of sobriety, then I won a $10,000 grant, which was unreal. And it actually set me on my way to, I was able to get a computer. I was able to get a car. and helped me to settle into Nashville, where I was going to be teaching for the next 2 years. And I stayed sober through my first year of teaching, which was absolute hell. I mean, the stuff that they had us doing at the Teach for America level, and then also within the school was really struggling, and that's what they do. They put you in struggling schools. But I stayed sober through it. And everyone I knew who was in the program with me and Teach for America with me was like, they were drinking, partying. But I got to Nashville, and as soon as I could, I got to a meeting. I didn't have a car at the time. I couldn't tell anyone I was sober. And of course, somehow I found 3 other people in the cohort that were also sober. So it's just crazy how that works, you know. I had like a AA mug or something that I won at a meeting in Baltimore, and this kid who was my buddy the whole time, he's like, "Oh my God, are you a friend of Bill's?" And I was like, "Wait, what?" Like, it was just, it was how he found out. It was like, "Yo, like, I knew you were my fam." Like, it was crazy. But stuff like that, when it happens, like, you can't deny that miracle, you know. It's like, we were already bros, and then that happened. So, I stayed sober through those 2 years of teaching, and then I was having a lot of issues with my relationship, and that was it at the time. It was like my college sweetheart, and like, yeah, I can't say exactly what went wrong. I can say I was working a program, but it could have been better. I felt really isolated, I think, was a big part of it. And it just, and I got an Adderall prescription. That was like, that's a huge part of my story. Like, once I was like 24, 25, I got an Adderall prescription. And I used to use it recreationally in college, but it was pretty much, once I started taking that, I thought it would help me with teaching. And it ended up just leading me right back to smoking weed, and then right back to drinking. And within months, like within 5-6 months. So after having 2 years of sobriety, I went back out. And from there, pretty much all hell broke loose. I mean, I was 20. I had a quarter life crisis, dead ass. Like, when I was 25, I had like a full-blown manic episode. And it was induced by Zoloft to an extent, but also Zoloft mixed with Adderall, and then with alcohol, and then just like, it was nuts. I almost died in a car accident. I ended up calling crisis on myself because my partner she thought I was just being a dickhead. Like, she did not understand I was having like a full-blown mental breakdown. And I spent 15 days in a psych ward in Nashville. And that was terrible. They let us outside one time in 16 days for literally 4 minutes. You know, it was not rehabilitative, but it did help me. I mean, it got me kind of stable. They also put me on like a bunch of meds, and some of them I was allergic to. And, you know, I know that the institution situation, it's so bad. It needs so much reform. And like, that's really all I could, like, I'm sure there's so much to say about that. There's so much to say. But at the day I got out, my mom called me and told me that my grandfather, who was like a father figure to me, was on hospice, and that I should come home because he was going to die. And, you know, after everything that happened, I was just like, I guess I'll go home. And my grandpa ended up living for 2 weeks, which was just enough time for me to get there. And like, I was super like, I'm going to be sober now. And I got home, and it's like, all my cousins were all in the grieving process. And I just started drinking again. And at that point, my college sweetheart, we'd been together for like 3 years. She broke up with me while I was home in Springfield. And, you know, and then just shit hit the fan. Like, I lost my car. I lost my job. I lost everything. And I was living back at home with my mom and my stepdad, who I mean, he came into my life when I was 19 and wanted to tell me what to do all the time. And it's like, when you're the one that's been in charge of your household for your whole life, to have like a grown man getting in your face and telling you what to do is just like, nah, like, I'm not doing that. So going back home to that situation really sucked. And I don't know how I would have stayed sober. Honestly, I didn't have anything. I was trying to go to meetings. I was trying so hard. I wanted to be sober, but my circumstances were just so shit. And my coping skill was drinking. So it is, you know, it is what it is. And I needed that time. Like, I spent like a year really, really struggling and just drink it every night, but drink heavily. I ended up, you know, I at this point had my master's degree, and I'm 25 years old. I have my master's degree. I just did Teach for America, and I'm working in a UMass dining hall. because it was the only job I could get. And I was dating some girl who was so bad for me. It was like not a good situation. And yeah, I just basically had like a mess on my hands. And then within a year, I was trying to get sober again, put together a couple months. We got a new place. I went back out. I had my first arrest, and it was like the police report is insane. When I read it, it's crazy. But I guess the even crazier part, and I hope no one that I work with is listening to this, is I was at this point back teaching, and it never impacted my job somehow. But I was really struggling. Like I kept having withdrawals because I would drink really heavy and then try to stop on my own. And there was a couple points when I was on an ambulance because it turned out to be just like extreme dehydration, but it was not good. Don't try and detox on your own if you're listening to this. I know right now it's tough because you don't want to go into a hospital, but you don't want to die from that shit. So, within a couple of years, I was now working at the high school I went to, and this was last year. Went to a detox, got 4 months clean, and I was sober, but I can't say I was clean because I was still taking Adderall. Even though I was prescribed it, I definitely wasn't taking it as prescribed. And I'll say this, like, if you're struggling to stop drinking and you're still taking Adderall, maybe stop taking Adderall because it's not going to help. Like, I promise. Like, they have other shit for you that's not that much of a stimulant. That's not literally prescription meth. So I have no regrets being off at this point. I know I would not have this almost year of sobriety if I was still on it. But I did get engaged in that time. And to my high school sweetheart, we just ended up, I never thought we'd end up back together. And she stopped drinking. And we were having a lot of issues with her being like, basically that our relationship was really strong, except that I was just struggling so much with my drinking. Like I just turned into a complete evil demon when I'm drinking. So, it's just crazy because on the outside, I had things together. I had a job, I had a car again, I had my own place again, money in the bank. But as I continued drinking, just like shit was just spiraling out of control. And then I started doing stand-up comedy, and that took off so much quicker than I thought. Like I blew up like almost instantly. Just it was nuts, and it blew up because I was sober. But then because I blew up so quick and I was getting paid to be in bars, I started drinking again. And this was last June when I had this huge sellout show for Gay Pride, and like I was like headlining, and it was like I was like on top, but I was also struggling with coke again, and I couldn't stop drinking, and I was taking just a bajillion milligrams of Adderall just to keep, the fact that I was teaching all day and then going and doing comedy all night. It was just like, it was not sustainable. It was on some like Robin Williams shit where I was just like constantly trying to put stuff in my body to keep me going and keep being entertaining. And obviously behind closed doors, I'm falling apart. I feel like so alone, and it was so hard. And eventually in a blackout one night, I cheated on my fiance is what happened. And I'm going to say that as embarrassing as that is, because it is embarrassing for me to admit infidelity, but it's like, it's a part of my story, and I know I'm not alone, so I want to put it out there. And she basically said, don't talk to me till you go to rehab. And it wasn't like the don't talk to me till you go to rehab that's like, and we'll work it out when you do. It was like, I don't know if I'm ever going to fucking talk to you again. It was like, I think we're done for good. And I was heartbroken because from the first time I saw her at 14, I was like, I'm going to marry her, literally. Like the first time I saw her, I thought that, and it was breaking my heart that I was hurting her so bad. So I went to my principal, boss, who was actually my high school principal. If you think about that, it's just nuts. And I was like, listen, I can't come back and teach next year if I don't get sober. And I just said it. I don't know what it was, but I was just at a loss. I had no one to talk to. I had no one to talk to. I mean, I don't have parents. I have two little sisters. One of them had just had a baby. The other one was in college. So, and then my partner who had just told me basically to go fuck myself. So it was like, I don't know. I needed somebody, and I happened to go to the right person because he called a teacher I did not know was in the program, came down, And we sat there for 7 hours calling different rehabs trying to get me a bed. And my principal and the other teacher did not leave. They not only did they not leave, they kept hounding my insurance company to do what they needed to do to get me in. And then they drove me to a place. It was an hour and 15 minutes away. They drove me and dropped me off. And it happened to be a perfect fit rehab. I mean, I had a counselor, I had a social worker, the food was balling. They served Starbucks coffee. And I got in on a scholarship because of the work that teacher did to get me in there. My insurance wasn't going to cover it. Even teacher insurance, like they were trying to send me to some like another really crappy state facility. And this place had a more alternative approach where they like, we played outside, like you learn how to paint, like stuff like that. And like, I needed that. I'm a hobbyist, and I just needed to learn that I could do shit and not be fucked up. Like I could have fun and I didn't have to drink. And that's exactly what I learned. Like my personality came out, and I was like, oh man, I'm still funny. I don't need to be drunk to be funny. Like I'm still hyper as hell. Like I'm still, in fact, without all that stuff, I was because I could just go to sleep at night. I didn't have to like feel ashamed, and I didn't have to make myself pass out. And I started learning new coping skills, and I got on the right meds finally after, 5-6 years. It was a perfect fit, and I feel so blessed that I ended up there. And one of the best things was I had family therapy with my sister. She brought her 2 kids and her fiance, who was actually also her high school sweetheart. So I don't know. Either my mom did something right or she did something real wrong where we both are with our high school sweethearts. But, just having her there and talking and realizing that, like, I was actually hurting her too, and she'd been wanting, but I'm her older sister, so she didn't want to, like, tell me, like, hey, I'm worried about you and you really need to stop drinking. So we had a lot of really heartbreaking but important conversations. And since then, she's been someone I've relied on a lot. And then, like a month after I got out of rehab, I ended up rekindling things with my fiance. We actually moved in together, like, I'm not even kidding you, 4 days before our state put on quarantine protocols. So, like, imagine waiting for so long to move in with your partner, like, literally since you were a child. And then and then you move in together, and it's like, great, now you're stuck inside forever. Happy divorce. Like, it was just, like, weird timing. So we're actually doing great, and it's because of recovery that we're doing so great. Like, it's because we both work a program, and if I were drinking right now, I don't know. I would be wishing I was dead if I wasn't dead already. I just can't. Yeah. I feel so grateful every single day. Every single day I wake up sober, I'm just like, yes, like I did it again. Like when I was in that rehab, the best advice I was given was don't pick up today no matter what. And I say that to myself whenever I have a craving or something. It's like, don't pick up today no matter what. And then the other thing I do if I'm like having a real bad day, I just go to sleep, honestly. I'm like, I'll try again tomorrow. Like, those things work for me because I just need to not let my emotions get the best of me and get me back and, like, just basically recenter myself before I do something reckless. Yeah. So I'm going to pass with that.
Awesome. That was great.
Thanks for sharing.
Yeah, I liked what you said. It's something that isn't said enough, where it's just like, I'll try again tomorrow. Like, if the day is just going to shit, and you're just like, oh man, fuck this. I'm just gonna fucking call it and, like, try tomorrow for a better day. Like, and I think sometimes it can fuck with you if you're just like, I'm just gonna keep, going at it, and, like, things are just gonna keep going poorly. And then that just fucks with your whole day. So I like that. So Allie.
Thanks. Yeah, it's got some shit. Yeah.
Cool.
I really loved that you kept saying no matter what, because last week we kept talking about the no matter what club, and, like, I am with you 100%, and I was trying to get Eric to rejoin, anyway, you weren't there, so I won't really get into it, but it was just so on point, like, when you said that. But yeah, it was so good to hear you share, like, I love recovery. It's like I haven't seen, I don't know what you look like, but I feel like I know you right now from hearing your story. Right? Like that's so like, and it's awesome. Like it's great. Like I don't know. It's really good to hear you share. And like when you said in the beginning about losing a friend at the age of 4, so I had a crush on this boy when I was like, I was in like 7th grade, right? And like he told me like he liked me and all this stuff, and I was trying to play like what people do on TV and in the movies. And I was like, oh, I'm just going to play it cool and like act like I'm not that interested in him. And then I'm going to tell him I really am, but I don't want him to know because then he will lose interest in me. So I'm going to play it cool. And the next time I see him, I'm going to tell him how I feel. Well, he died in a dirt bike accident. And like, it fucked me up for a long time. I felt like I did not deserve love. Like, I don't know why, like, I thought that, but, like, my little teenage brain told me that was, like, my way of coping with it. So when you said that, it totally reminded me of that situation. And, like, I felt this feel, like, I felt what you were saying. But, like, yeah, it was so good to hear you share. Like, what a message. And, like, not everybody's a one-night wonder. You know, I don't know how I was. I mean, I had been introduced to the rooms, like, a ton of times throughout my using, but like I never took it seriously, so I don't ever really talk about that or anything. I was like, this is a weird cult group of people, and like they are brainwashed and they are simple as hell, and I don't want anything to do with this. I want to chant, like I don't want to hold hands, I don't want to like circle up, you know. But that was just like my disease, I think, telling me, like, because I think somewhere in my logical mind it was like, wait a minute, these people have a point. Like, wait a minute, you actually do that stuff that they're talking about, but like I just, I couldn't. But yeah, it was really good to hear you share.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. And if you want to know what I look like, I've been told I look a lot like if Justin Bieber drove a bus.
Do you know what's hilarious? When he started talking, I was like, oh my God, is this Justin?
No, I've been told Ellen DeGeneres. Like, if Ellen DeGeneres joined the mob, they'd be like calling me like Ellen DeGenerate or some shit.
I love that. I love that. Because your voice, so I guess you have the Justin vibe and the Justin vocal. So that's funny.
My hair is reckless now. There's no worries, you know.
So we definitely have a few questions for you. So Allie, do you want to go first or do you want me to go first?
Eric, you can go first.
Okay. First off, I think it's crazy that you went to Goucher. That's wild.
Wait, Goucher? Wait, how?
Huh?
How do you know Goucher? No one knows it.
I went to Towson.
Because we're from Maryland.
Yeah.
Oh, for real?
I went to Towson and I lived, so you graduated in 13?
Yeah.
I graduated Towson in 2010. Did you, so across from Goucher, if you remember, there were like the Delaney Valley apartments and they were like these really old stone buildings that were apartments.
Mm-hmm.
I lived there for like a few years when I went to Towson. So I had a lot of friends who went to Goucher. I worked at Record and Tape Traders too, if you ever went there.
What?
Yeah.
Wait, this is nuts. I should have asked y'all where you were from the top, because like what? Like Towson is like that's such a small world. Like what the hell?
When you said you went to school in Baltimore and then it was like Goucher, I was like, oh shit, like we might have like crossed paths at one point. That's crazy.
Yo, my friend used to live, you know where that CVS was? Right by where you're saying you live?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, where the Five is, right? My friend lived in the house right there, and we would party there nonstop.
Oh yeah, I used to go to CVS and buy like frozen dinners all the time because I was just a shitty drug addict and I just ate like meatloaf.
My best friend worked at that liquor store. Wait, what?
It's kind of wild, right? I just had to bring that up because it kind of like when you said that I was like, oh wow, weird, small world. But I'm going to ask, you grew up Catholic and coming to recovery, at least, from like a fellowship perspective, right? There's a spiritual journey that a lot of people have to like embark on or choose to embark on. I did not, but a lot of people do choose to embark on that. And so how has your spirituality if it has, come and played a role in your life through recovery now? And did you take any of the elements from your upbringing and incorporated them into your spirituality in this stage of your life?
Ooh, I'll say not on purpose, like a lot of the things I have left over from my Catholic upbringing are not wanted, like I'm trying to accept myself for how I am today, but there's just so much guilt that I carry and so much like self-laceration that occurs. And like, I have this thing where if I mess something up, I'm just like, it's over for me. I might as well go drink. And I feel like I got that from that idea that any sin is as bad as any sin, So I have to let go of a lot of my preconceived notions of God and sin and just try and like just shower myself with self-love, but for real, because so I don't think I have a hard time with God, but I think the longer I'm in recovery, I'm realizing I do actually have some resentment. So it's definitely been a process trying to figure out like, yeah, I'm cool to pray. Yeah, I feel like I have a connection with my higher power, but is there stuff left over from my youth that is preventing me from really connecting with my higher power to the extent that I should be? I have a different concept of higher power now than I did. Like now I think of higher power as time, just like the concept of time.
Oh,
like it goes back.
Explain that, please. I'm very curious.
Yes, please.
Sure. Yeah. So time goes backwards for infinity and forwards for infinity. It's impossible to understand the concept alone, right? You can't even wrap your head around time as a thing. And it heals all wounds, right? Time fixes everything. And to me, that's God. So the idea that if I do the right thing every day, I'm going to, I'll be different. I'll be changed. That's God. That's me trusting time to take care of things and to improve me. So if I drink every day, over time, obviously, right? It's also like, to me, time is, it's not linear, but it has no judgment. It doesn't give a shit about what's happening. It's just like, you know what I'm saying? So like, I have a hard time sometimes with the concept of like, God wanting me to do something. Like, I don't think God as a concept gives a shit if I'm sober or not. I think I give a shit if I'm sober, and I'm the one that needs to put in the time toward a recovery program so that I can keep what I have been so freely given. Does that answer the time thing?
That's amazing. Yeah. That might be one of my top. Yeah, that's top 5 favorite spirituality answers so far. That's good. That's really fucking good. Because I subscribe to like the have you seen The Watchmen? Like,
hell yeah.
The movie.
Yeah. Who watches The Watchmen? Yeah.
So like not the show. The show's dope. If you haven't seen it, fucking see it. But the movie, where Dr. Manhattan is just like, I forget the exact quote of what he says, but he's just saying like, I just want to go and create some life somewhere else. And he's like a god. And it's like, why am I that important to believe that like something that has like that much power would care about me? Like, it seems very narcissistic to think that like I'm that important in the grand scheme of things. So I like that time. That's good. I really like that. Oh man. I'm going to think about this now. Okay.
I also want to say that like it helps me because in teaching I've learned about a growth mindset, and it's something I really stress for my students. So a growth mindset is just your belief in your ability to change and grow, right? So like if I can't, instead of saying I'm bad at math or I'm not good at math, saying like I just haven't mastered certain concepts yet, and you just adding the word yet on it. And to me, like I can achieve anything if I put enough time into it. And isn't that so powerful, right? Like that's my God strength right there. If I invest the time, I'm going to get it. And it's the same thing with recovery. Like if I invest the time in my recovery, then I'll get more out of it. And if I don't, well, time will tell. You know what I'm saying?
It's awesome.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's good shit.
Thank you.
Good shit. Is it my turn?
It is your turn, Allie.
Okay. So you mentioned in the beginning and then at the end how I guess the whole situation, right, with what's going on with the world right now has like affected you because you're not working. And then I'm sure it's affected like meeting attendance and all of that. So I just was like wondering, like what are some of the things that you're doing? Because I'm sure you're like, I don't know, but like I work in the medical field, so like my life didn't come to a complete standstill, but like I'm sure being a teacher and then, because you can't work, you can't go to school. Like I just wanted to know like what you're doing basically to help keep you sober and clean during this, new time for everybody, like this new experience that's going on.
Oh yeah, for sure. I started a podcast. It's called Sober During Crisis, and it's because I wanted to know the answer to that exact question of like, how the hell are people staying sober right now? Because I thought I was gonna drink, honestly. Y'all, like, I'm not gonna lie to you. There was like the first couple weeks when I didn't have to go to work, and I was like, this is exactly the kind of situation that I would try to create for myself when I was drinking. Like I would
Yes.
alone so I could drink, and I would be like, oh, I just need free time to focus on my creative projects. But what I meant by that was like to sit and drink and mess around in the studio. So because I actually studied computer music at Goucher, I used to rap around the area down there, like at the Hexagon. Y'all know that place?
No.
It's like
I'm not familiar.
Where's
club
that?
thing. It's downtown.
Yeah.
I don't know, but I used to like rap when I lived in Baltimore, and then when I moved to Nashville, I planned to keep pursuing music, and I kind of did, but it just took a different turn than I was expecting. So basically, I've had all of these skills with editing audio for a long time, and I would say I wasn't doing God's work with it. Like I wasn't carrying a message that was useful to other people. And so then when this came around, I had two options. I could relapse and throw away everything that I had achieved, or I could actually do something useful with it. So I was like, man, I'm just going to see if people want to just chat with me about how they're staying sober, and I'll just like ask them how they're doing it, since I don't know. And it gave me something to focus on. I spend a lot of hours every week editing stuff for the podcast now. Like it's pretty much, besides like teaching and playing video games and working out, it's like that's all I do.
So you're still teaching?
Yeah, I think I'm legally required to say yes, but not.
Good answer.
I mean, not really. It's not, I put stuff up online and make sure everybody knows what they're doing, and I'm getting paid. I'm not going to complain about it.
Yeah.
All right.
Cool. Eric?
So, So you said, so one of the things that I'm always like, we've talked to a few people, like, you said that now I'm trying to phrase this so I don't come off wrong.
It's all right. I'll just yell at you.
Okay. Call me out if I'm saying things wrong. So
Yeah.
You mentioned gender and how you were talking about, like, one of the things that I'm curious about, and I've asked other people in the LGBT community, is that, one of the things I find interesting is we had one person on the show, and we asked her the question of like, how was growing up, how much did, being a lesbian like contribute to your sobriety? And she said something where she was at someone's 1-year anniversary, and she was just so angry because the girl was like maybe 20 and she was also a lesbian, but like that didn't play a role into her like drinking because people were more accepting of her as an individual in these times than the person before. And I'm curious, with you having like, struggling with your gender growing up, was there how much did that play into, because you described a lot of your home life, and that was a lot of the reason you drank and used, was like your struggle with your gender and trying to figure out who you were? Was there an issue? Like, was that one of the main contributing factors to why you, drank and used? And if so, how were you able to get, get through that?
Oh, yeah. All right. So to start, I want to say that it did impact my drinking because it actually kept me out of the rooms of AA for a long time. The very old school notions of gender in 12-step groups were driving me out. I mean, I would get there, it'd be like, men sponsor men and women sponsor women. I'd look at some of the women, I'd be like, I wish you would sponsor me. You know what I mean? So really, it did not do me any good to have those like real old school ideas of gender as a binary, and just the idea that your biological sex determines what your gender expression is going to be, and your gender, and because for me, like everything about me now is just, I'm very true to myself, but it doesn't fit into societal constructs. And even as far as sexuality, like I hate the word lesbian, but that's because when I hear it, I just picture like a lizard wearing lipstick, and I don't know, I don't identify as a lizard wearing lipstick. You know what I'm saying?
No, I wait, I don't know. Why do you think of a lizard wearing lipstick?
I hate how that word sounds. It sounds so nasty.
I've never. Now I'm gonna, when I hear it next time, that's what I'm gonna think of. I'm gonna be like, I got a really good visual of when you just said that. Like,
Yeah.
Right. So I didn't like that term really ever. And also because, I mean, if we're getting down to, I identify as queer only because, like, for me, gender just plays less of a role.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's not that, I don't know, it's not that I'm not attracted to men. It's just that, like, we're like bros. Like, it's like hard for me to push past this idea that, like, it's like, I don't know. It's like, ew, like, I can't explain it. But for, like, as far as gender and my struggles with it, you know, when I was like 13 or something, I tried to tell my mom that I was bi at 7th grade. And then I was struggling with it so bad. And she literally was like, no, you're not. And I was like, okay. And that was like the last time that I really tried to talk to her about it. I knew I was like, I knew I was something. I was like, something's not right. I'm not like other kids for sure in some way with this gender thing. And I constantly felt like I was crawling out of my skin. But as far as like using, I think I used it like when I would drink, I would very much embody the principles of toxic masculinity. And since I've gotten sober, I'm like, oh, I'm actually like super soft and vulnerable, and that's okay. I don't need to have this like harder shell on me and act like I'm so tough and cool and nothing you do bothers me. And in fact, if you piss me off, I'll show you by getting so self-destructively drunk that I throw away my progress or whatever, you know? So like now I'm like, I'm like, well, I care about people and I like doing things for people, and that's okay. Like there's nothing wrong with that. So I think that answers your question. I'm not sure.
No, yeah, I'm always, so I looked at your Twitter account. I do have a question, and it can be like, and I don't know if this is like PC necessarily, but can you explain to me? And I'm just been curious about this, like because your pronoun is they and them, right?
Right.
So what does that like mean to you?
Oh my God, I hate this so much. No, listen, not you.
No, yeah, I'm just curious from like just a.
Come for him, he said. Come for him if he ever said.
Yeah, you can come at me.
Question, no. I resisted so bad having they them pronouns until quite literally 4 months ago. I was like, all right, I'm gonna put them in my Twitter profile and we'll see what happens. The reason that they them works for me right now is because for all intents and purposes, I'm trans.
Okay.
Right? I'm non-binary. I don't fit the gender that I was assigned at birth. But I'm not gonna transition. I played football as a kid. I was the only girl in the entire league. And
cool. What position did you play?
Defensive end, and then in 8th grade I was a linebacker.
Oh.
Yeah, but it's like I don't want to. This is gonna sound so dumb, but I don't want to rob myself of all the stuff that I've been through because I'm female, because I'm technically a woman. Like, as soon as I like, I already kind of like passed as a dude. People call me sir by accident all the time. When I lived in Nashville, I was sir no matter what. And so to fully transition, I know I'll pass right away, and people will look at me and they'll see a dude. Like, they're not going to be like, oh, that's a trans man. Like, they're going to see a full dude. And that would rob me of some of the experiences that I've had as a female, as a woman. And I don't want to do that. Like, I very much have fought a lot of fights as a result of my gender. And I'm not going to do that to myself. So the they them thing is just like, because when people refer to me using the she her pronouns, it does kind of make me cringe, to be honest. Like, it's just like, ugh, like, it's just not right. But I don't want to go fully over to asking people to call me he him. And that might be a thing that changes. Also, look, my dad's mad bald, and as soon as I start taking testosterone, I'm losing all my beautiful hair. So I got to think about these things. You know what I'm saying?
No, that was great. I mean, I'm curious usually, and I never thought the way that you described how, you know, you didn't want to lose your experiences as, you know, like a female, and, you know, you're essentially, you have both experiences, right? And that's kind of like what you're aiming for, is you get to keep the experiences of each pronoun.
Yeah. The they them is really just a way to encapsulate that. Yeah. And I know it's hard. I had my sister struggle with it a lot. She's going to kill me for telling this story, but the other day she's going to the store, and my friend who uses they them pronouns was working, and she said, if I see they, I'll let you know. And I just started busting out laughing. She's like, I'm doing my best. I'm trying so hard to learn how to. But it was hard for me. And like I tell people now, I'm like, my pronouns are bro, bruh. You know what I mean?
No, you're giving very. I like the thing on time, and that makes sense. Like, the pronoun thing makes sense. I'm just, I don't know. I'm not, like, I've been very curious about that. But, Allie?
So I just had a question to kind of piggyback back off of Eric's question, and then I had a separate one. But to piggyback off of Eric, like what you had said, you know, you don't the experience. Do you feel like if you transition, you're going to lose that part of you, like this, you know, person that you've created thus far, or like the childhood side of you, or, you know, whatever that one experience that you've had? Do you feel like you have to let that go in order to transition?
No. I think a big part of it is that, well, one, like I said, I don't want to lose my hair, because I don't have a good face for being bald. Like I just, growing up, I was just a little girl with the face of a grown man, you know? I do that one stand-up comedy, and most people just feel bad. But the thing is, like,
I can't judge. I can't see, so I don't.
In all reality, I know I'm going to pass. And by pass, I mean I'm going to look like your typical white guy. I'm just going to be a short, nerdy white guy. And unfortunately, like that's just not been the reality of my experience. So it's not that I would lose that. It's that becomes so much further away from the surface. And then I'd have to out myself. I'd have to tell people, well, growing up, I was a little girl, you know, and that defeats the whole purpose. Yeah. Why even transition if you're going to have to be like, well, you know, growing up when I had my period, like, who the fuck is this? You know what I'm saying? I also, my birth name is Angela. And I go by Ange, and my family has struggled a lot with that. Like they can't, and I'm like, I'm not saying call me Christmas tree Angel. I'm saying it's like literally just half my name. And the thing is, I took off the ELA, and now I just teach that. You know what I'm saying? Like, so it's been so hard for me to explain. So now I say, you know, my name is Ange. It's short for androgynous. And in all reality, what the hell I am. know, and that's fine. Like, it's like, that's just true to my experience. To me, gender just doesn't make any freaking sense. Like, I don't get why we have such strict rules around how men act and how women act, and anybody who doesn't fit into that's a weirdo. It's like, or just like relax. Like, they're just colors, you know, they're just clothes. They're just hand gestures. It's just a haircut. Like, relax.
Yeah, no, I totally get it. I get that. And people do, like, most people just want to put people in a box because it's easy to categorize them that way. They're like, oh, you're this, you're that, you're this. It's not always that easy. It's not always that simple. Not everybody is going to fit the same mold. Another, like, the actual question that I have for you. So my sponsorship family, we had a guy in our sponsorship family, and people would, like, ask me questions about it as if it's like some weird occurrence. And I was just wondering if you did have a male sponsor, and if you do, or if you do, like, you know, your struggles or experience with that. I think you touched on it a little bit about old school, you know, kind of keeping you out of the room. So, like, I just wanted to know what your experience was like finding a sponsor, the type of sponsor that you do have, and just like how, you know, how it's perceived, or how people in meetings like react to it, or if they even give a fuck.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, the worst experience I had with it was actually in a detox just a couple of years ago, where and this was a very angry man. I feel like he wasn't working a very good program, if I could take his inventory. But he looked at me dead in the face and was like, men sponsor men and women sponsor women. And I go, yeah, that's not going to work for me. And he goes, well, that's how it is. And I was like, no, but, like, it's not going to work for me. And, like, this idea that somebody else is going to tell me how my program should work and what's going to keep me sober just, like, got me so mad.
Yeah.
Like, you can't tell everybody that. Like, you don't know.
Yeah.
You don't know what's going to work for somebody else, but I get why in 1930 that made sense. Also, let's be honest here, the big book says nothing about sponsorship. So I got a favorite sponsor, and it was this dude Sam. Actually, when I was in Baltimore, he was a classmate, and I went to my favorite meetings were in Baltimore. Like, I loved it there. I loved the fellowship there. There were so many young people, a lot of dudes wearing backpacks, drinking big gulps, but, you know, you get what you get. And then I had a gay dude, which was a good fit because, I mean, we didn't have a lot in common, but, like, he worked a good program. And I actually now I'm blessed to have a trans dude sponsor. So I have someone who really gets it. I'm blessed though. I found a really good queer AA meeting that if I didn't have, I don't know that I would have made it through this year. I happened to just fall into it at the right time, and it was, like, just starting up. So I've been a big part of it, like, getting on its legs and everything. And I feel like being so involved in one group like that, it just makes a huge difference. But yeah, I had female sponsors too. When I was in Nashville, I had a real hard, Nashville, I didn't even try and talk about this stuff when I was there, honestly. There was one gay meeting. It was a Friday night at 5 p.m. It was the one gay meeting in the entire city. And there's a lot of liberals there, so I don't know. But I had a female sponsor when I was there, and it was fine. I mean, my sisters are my best friends. It's not like I don't have friends that are women. It's just like, it's just awkward. It just gets awkward, you know?
Yeah. No, well, I don't personally know, but, like, I saw my sponsee brother go through it, and I mean, he struggled, and you know, it was, like, weird because that's not even, like, my thing, you know, like, yeah, we have the same sponsor, but, like, I'm not him and I'm not my sponsor. But people would, like, ask me how I felt about it. I'm like, I don't feel anything about it. Good. If it worked for them, good for them. But, like, why would I have an opinion about it? You know what I mean? Like, I wouldn't have an opinion about any of that because it's not about, like, women stick with the women, men stick with the men. It's about getting the help that you need to don't die at the end of the day. So
even say on that, actually, just hearing you, it just brings me back to Baltimore and back to young people's meetings that aren't LGBTQ meetings. It's so separated by gender, and I have this issue. This is the thing, and I need people to not do this. Like, it really drove me out. I would hear a dude say something that I really liked and really related with and resonated with. So I'd go up to him after a meeting and be like, hey, man, I really liked what you said. And he would be like, cool, have you met my friend Amy? And try and push me off on a girl. And it's like, no, dude, like, I'm telling you, I liked what you said. It actually, like, it doesn't have to be, you're the one making it about gender right now. Like,
Yeah.
you know, I feel like that other people being self-conscious about it has prevented me from making certain connections. Or you go to a meeting and you see all the dudes standing in one circle, all the females standing in another, and you're like, well, where do I go? Like, where? Because, like, especially when dudes are always trying to push me off on a woman to say, like, yeah, you can't talk to me. It's like, why not? You're working a program too. I'm working a program. I'm not trying to sleep with you, dude. I'm trying to talk to you about recovery.
Yeah, no, yeah, I get it. And I see it, I've seen it done, you know what I mean? Like, and we have a lot, like, I'm from Baltimore. We might have even been in the same meeting or know some of the same people, but like, I see it done by old timers a lot. And I guess maybe it's just that, like you said, like maybe back then, or like their sponsor and what they learned, that's how they learned it. But like, times are different now, times are changing. And like, I don't know, like, I don't care whoever your sponsor is, like, as long as you're like happy and you're not using, like, that's all I care about. I don't mind. So, yeah, I'm really glad you shared about that, because like, it's not something I don't think we've ever talked about. It's important. It matters.
Thanks. And you know, what's crazy is, like, you'll have people that the reason they make those rules is because they can't act appropriately. Like, they cannot speak to the opposite appropriately. And it's like, that's your issue, dude. Like, that's you have to work through that. That's not on me. It's not my issue.
Yeah, like, I didn't even think about it that way. But yeah. I mean, I see why, like, back people would say that, oh, like, you could be taken advantage of. But, I mean, like you said, if you're not trying to sleep with a dude, like, why can't you talk recovery? So.
Like, I promise, bro, I promise you. Like, that's so far from what I'm trying to get out of this conversation.
All right. So we are now at the Twitter question. So we don't get David's little horn and song and dance this week. So the way this works, that's just a little shade thrown at David, because he knows I hate that thing that he does. So the way this works, Ange, is this is like round robin. You'll go first, then Allie, and then myself. And this week's Twitter question / topic is from Rewrite Recovery Counseling, and it's on boundaries. And they give a specific example, but you can talk about any type of boundary. But the example they gave is every time someone uses or acts out, it's a boundary violation. Every time it is the inability to set and hold boundaries that lead back to the pit. And our inability to set and keep boundaries is ultimately a self-worth issue. We don't believe we're worth it. So, Ange, if you want to talk about boundaries first, and then we'll go around the room.
Ooh, you know, I have a hard time thinking about my struggles with addiction as an inability to hold a boundary, because I do have that physical allergy that whenever a drop of alcohol touches my lips, that's suddenly all I can think about until I get some spiritual help. And I think for certain people, it might be a case of you can just create a new routine and just not drink with pure willpower. But the way I understand my disease is that I can't just make a decision and not cross a boundary. It's, you know, I need literal intervention. I need God. Like, I need something beyond human aid, and pushing myself and trying to, you know, to me, that's a slippery slope to say that it's my fault and blaming myself, because what ends up happening is it does become just further and further self-deprecation of, like, you fucked up, you're going to keep fucking up, so you might as well keep drinking. Or like, oh, you had that one beer, so I guess you're going on a 5-month bender. So I guess I just, as far as like personal boundaries with myself in addiction, I think today I do have the freedom to create new routines and hold myself to them. But that's because I'm free of my actual choice. Like, I'm not doing the things I used to do that kept me in that pit. So yeah, that's an interesting way of thinking about it. I never thought about it like that. And I would say, if I had to be mad at myself every time I drink, which I usually do, yeah, I could. I don't know. I don't want to push myself down into that rabbit hole. Like, today, I just want to, like, I'll set the boundary of not thinking about the times that I messed up.
Allie?
Me?
Yeah.
So boundaries. I had to relearn what they were when I, got clean. I had no boundaries basically when I was using, and I would like try to set very low bar boundaries, and even those would get thrown to the wayside. As my using progressed, or as the night progressed, even, or like 10 minutes after I thought it in my head. And it was like really difficult for me to set boundaries at first because I just wanted to please everyone, and I was so scared to stand up for myself, or so scared to disappoint someone, or I don't know. Like I didn't have any sense of boundaries. And I think that like detoxing helped me set some boundaries because it was me creating goals and like timelines and saying like, hey, I'm going to hold myself accountable once I get to this date, to continue on, because I was on methadone and it was a process to come off of it. And then setting boundaries, like my sister, when I got clean, I moved back home, and she was using, like, it was me, my parents, and my sister and her son, and she was using, and I had to like learn how to say like, what you do is what you do, and like what I'm gonna do is what I'm gonna do, and it's what's best for me. And then like even with like my counselor, like there were certain things I went through a counselor when I first, was coming off of methadone and my first couple months clean, and he was a man, and a lot of trauma and like sex shit in my stories. And like we set boundaries like right away. Like I was like, I might touch on it, but please don't. I don't feel comfortable enough for you to dive deeper in there, because it was like some traumatic shit. And like it was like for me to work through with I knew I had to like set a boundary with him, so I didn't feel weird that I couldn't come back and see him, kind of thing. But I don't know, like boundaries help me to understand what self-integrity is. And like it helps me every time I set a boundary and I stuck to it, my integrity grew. And then every time I set another boundary and I stuck to it, my integrity grew. So I don't know. I mean, it was like a learning thing that I had to experience. It was like I had to understand what it was, why it was important, and then stick to it. Yeah.
Word.
So,
Eric?
I guess, Yeah, I don't think I read this. This has been on the docket of questions for a while, and I don't think I read the whole thing through for some reason. And I thought it was more about the boundary of when someone used, not when I myself used. But yeah, that's an interesting concept, that it's a boundary issue between yourself. And I mean, if you look at like a neurological perspective on how this all works, and you look at habits, like, to be honest, like, so it says like in the example, and our inability to set and keep boundaries is ultimately a self-worth issue. So, I mean, changing boundaries in this way that they're trying to say is like, it's changing a habit. And one of the things that, I've learned a lot, like by doing all the different things I do, it's, because it's not just the fact that I quit doing drugs, or I quit drinking, or I quit cigarettes, I stopped drinking energy drinks, like, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Those things aren't always, it doesn't happen right away. And I think one of the things that's really important with that type of a boundary when you're talking about relapse is not, like, because I mean, that's essentially the boundary you're talking about. And honestly, one of the things, and this kind of goes completely off topic, and I've shared about it a few times, I don't love the word relapse. I get why it's a thing. I have relapsed. And I think it can be, I think the way that it's phrased in fellowship recovery, it can be very detrimental. and I'm not as sure about AA because I don't have as much experience in AA as I do in NA, but I know in NA, a relapse is an excuse to get fucked up. And
Yeah,
and like I don't like that. Like one of the beautiful things I've heard shared about in other fellowships, because it's not just AA, it's not just NA. We have a lot of other people come on from different fellowships. The slip concept is amazing, and I know some people don't subscribe to it, and that's fine. But the ultimate
What is it?
a slip is just like you fucked up once, and you went right back in,
Oh.
and you didn't, So we've had people on.
Lose your job.
No, you didn't lose. Well, but like, okay, so like, let's say like you have a shitty night and you go down to West Baltimore and you're driving around and you're like, I'm gonna cop, and you pick up, and you pick up, right? And you fuck up for one night, but the very next day you're like, that was a mistake, and I'm just gonna go right back into recovery again. That's a slip. And I think when we personify that as like, you relapsed, like you should feel shame, you should feel guilt. It's like, no, thank you for coming right back. I'm happy you're not using today, and I'm not going to treat you any differently. I mean, the only thing that's different is like, let's examine why you did that and how we can make sure that it doesn't happen again. Because I think the issue when you're talking about that boundary and the self-worth is sometimes we can personify that relapse as like you've committed like murder and you now have this excuse to get super, super fucked up, and you're just like have so much guilt and shame because you let all these people down. But, we all came in because we're fuck ups. Like, we should expect people to fuck up, and we shouldn't, then fuck them up and make them feel bad because of that fuck up. So I don't know. I mean, that's kind of my take on it. And I know it's not really answering like the full question, but, yeah, I just think like, if you fuck up and you have like some self-worth and like, you don't feel like good about yourself because of that, like, don't keep fucking doing it, like, and hopefully the people around you can show you the love and care that you need, and, not make you feel guilty and feel shame because of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
like I've never relapsed when I was super connected to a group, or when I felt really connected to my 12-step. I've never relapsed when I felt like I was a part of. It's always when I feel like no one's going to give a shit anyway.
It's
Yeah.
I've relapsed twice. So when I've been like a part of, I mean, it's sometimes people change pretty quickly, right? And I understand that's protecting themselves, but from what I learned from those experiences is that, no matter what, those people need help too. And just because someone used, and if they're calling you and you've set this boundary that like, oh, they're using their, blah, blah, blah. Like, I don't know, when you're on Facebook in like 3 months and you see that they died, it's like, well, maybe you should have answered that call.
Yeah.
But like, that's like the harsh truth of it. Because when people are like, oh man, like, I felt so bad. I'm like, well, did you call them? Did you like reach out? Like, they were here for a while. Like, why didn't you do anything? Like, but you're going to cry about it now? Like, I'm sorry, I don't have sympathy for you. Like,
This is a good conversation, because I've never, like I said earlier, I was introduced to the room, but like I wasn't ready and I didn't understand it. So like I wouldn't say that was like a relapse. I would say I just wasn't ready. So when people like go, like if they've had substantial amounts of clean time, or they just get a week, a day, can't get a day, whatever it is, like I just look at it as like they're not ready, like, and that's okay. You know, like I can't tell you when it's time. I can't tell you when you're ready because I could want somebody to stop using, but unless they're willing, what can I do?
Yeah.
Other than love them and receive them when they come back and tell them it's okay and say that they're worthy and that they don't have to live like that if they don't want to, you know?
Yeah.
So that's like, I understand, like I never heard the slip concept before, other than like an old timer, say something about like a slip, but like I never thought of that.
Yeah, I love it. I love slip. I love the slip concept. I just think it can help people who relapse to know that they don't have to go balls to the wall, like shooting dope and coke and going on like a 9-month bender. You know, it's like
throw it all away.
Yeah, throw because I mean, I don't know. Allie, you and I go to the same meetings. Like, you know how it is. Like a relapse is like, fuck, like I relapsed. I'm like, you kind of get the gist of how like it is in like around here. If you're going to relapse, it's like, well, you might as well go hard.
Oh yeah.
You know,
that's what
I think that's just that addict mentality though. Like, well, I already let it go. So why not just throw it all away? And then it's like the train, you're on a nonstop train and you're just, before you know it, it's out of control. But maybe some people, like someone might want to test the waters and say, hey, maybe I've changed, right? Like maybe I can handle this again. And then they just use once and say, wait, I still feel shitty when I use, so let me not do that again.
Yeah, I always get snuck up on like I'll feel like crap and I won't tell anyone. And then next thing I know, I'm kind of pulling away from the group and I'm not opening up to people as much. And then I'm really resisting any fellowship and I'm not forging lasting connections. And that's when I find myself alone. And it's like, really no one does call when you're that person that shows up to meetings and leaves early and, isn't fully invested and people aren't really sure what you're all about. So I think it's not, there are people like that all the time, right? They come in and out and you can't tell where they're at. So it's not like you call those people and like, hey, it's like, you don't even have time to get their number really. It's always people that are kind of disconnected and finding ways to justify like, well, I don't have anyone else, so I guess I gotta turn back to my bottle. Like I've done that so many freaking times. Like it's like, the only person that's ever gonna be here for me is beer. It's like, or you could talk to people. Like
yeah,
it is a two-way street. Yes, it's it's definitely a two-way street. I guess I think the slip concept should start being integrated into like more fellowships, because I do think it would help people, to know like just because you fucked up, like you don't have to fuck up. But cool. All right.
Yeah.
Well, we are about out of time, but Ange, we would like to thank you for coming on. Your share was awesome. So, woo! Yay!
Thank you. And congratulations on your almost year.
Oh, yeah.
You will have a year by the time this comes out. You will have a year, and that's fucking awesome. Where can people find you, by the way, Ange?
All right, yeah. So real quick, if either of you want to be on the show on Sober During Crisis, you can. Anyone listening to this, I do just one-on-one, real casual conversations about how people are staying sober during crisis. And you can find the podcast is called Sober During Crisis. It's at Sober During on Twitter, Sober During Crisis on Insta. But my comedy and all my personal accounts are Bucks Wild. It's BUX Wild. I actually have an album on like Spotify and Apple Music, Bucks Wild.
Awesome.
But you can, my comedy's on YouTube and stuff if people are interested in that.
I'm interested in your album.
Awesome.
I found you.
Yeah.
Or I talk a lot about you. I'm not gonna lie, I made that before I got sober, but there's I don't talk about specifically using, but about the struggles with addiction a lot. Just a Day is a song I would recommend to anybody who's looking to have a sober song. I don't know what you'd be looking for, but
a Macklemore
Just some
song,
help,
like a
some-
Macklemore
something.
type
Yeah.
song.
Oh yeah.
Hope.
No.
Some hope.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Well, again, Ange, thank you so much. And
Yeah. I appreciate you guys.
yeah,
We appreciate you.
of course. And
Thanks for sharing.
I would do the whole outro, but David's not here, so I don't know it. He's the one who does it. But what I can say is, check out our Facebook page, our YouTube page, our Twitter, our Instagram. Please join our Patreon and support us. That would be fucking awesome. And you could also do other stuff too, but visit our webpage. But most importantly, y'all, stay safe and stay clean.